We're in the middle of a sermon series called, what was it called? Hall of Faith. And we're going through Hebrews chapter 11. We've just gone through for a long time the entire book of Hebrews, and I kind of skimmed through Hebrews chapter 11 so we could come back to it and do all the names in there. Amazing stories. We're talking about Judges and talking about, we're kind of living in Judges right now. And so last week we talked about Deborah. Today we're going to meet Barak. So let's turn to Judges 4 and start at the beginning. After Ehud died, the Israelites once again did evil in the eyes of the Lord. So the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabin, a king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth Hagoyim. Because he had 900 iron chariots and had cruelly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years, they cried to the Lord for help. Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was leading Israel at that time. She held court under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites came to her to have their disputes decided. She sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, "The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go, take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun, and lead the way to Mount Tabor. I will lure Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his troops to the Kishon River, and give them into your hands." Barak said to her, "If you go with me, I'll go. But if you don't go with me, I won't go." "Very well," Deborah said, "I will go with you, but because of the way you are going about this, the honor will not be yours, for the Lord will hand Sisera over to a woman." So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh, where he summoned Zebulun and Naphtali. 10,000 men followed him, and Deborah also went with them. We met Deborah a couple weeks ago, and this week we're going to be finally meeting Barak. Terry, our admin, keeps wondering what I'm going to, because she keeps putting Barak in for the sermon title, and then I keep telling her to change it because we're not quite there yet. We've tried 3 Sundays in a row to get to Barak. We're finally getting to Barak. We talked last week about the huge army that was under Jabin, king of Canaan, and his general Sisera. This impossible force to contend with, headed by 900 chariots. Today's equivalent to a battalion of tanks, or a few battalion of tanks. We talked about this godly woman named Deborah, who was a wife and a mother and a prophetess. She was living in her home under the palm tree, and people would come to her and they would ask for her decisions on things. And she was known to be this loving, caring woman who just spoke the words of God. She could be trusted, and the Holy Spirit moved in her. We talked about how we need more Deborahs in this world. The Canaanites had been oppressing Israel for 20 years, and it was time to do something about it. Someone should have done something about it by now. But no one was willing to stand up. No man had the courage to go against the army. No warrior was equipped enough in Israel. But worst of all, no one trusted God enough to believe that He could win the victory for His people. It was too impossible to their eyes. The other judges were primary military leaders, men who led these great campaigns of war against the enemies by the power of God. But there was no such man found in Israel for 20 years. And this was a shame to them. In Isaiah 3, chapter 12, or Isaiah chapter 3, verse 12, God talks about how bad things had gotten in Israel by using this example. He says, "Youths oppress my people. Women rule over them." In other words, the kids are running everywhere. Children have taken over. And the women are doing everything. Even the men's jobs. What weak men you have in Israel. What a curse to your nation. You are an embarrassment. Youths can take you over, and the women are doing everything. Warren Wiersbe says in his commentary about this. Remember, this was a male-dominated society, and it was the men who were called to rule the land, lead the battles, fight the wars, claim the military victories in God's name. Warren Wiersbe says this about having Deborah as a judge. For God to give his people a woman judge was to treat them like little children, which is exactly what they were when it came to the spiritual things. Thank God there was a godly woman like Deborah, because there was no man in the entire people of God who was willing to stand up and do the job. So she had to speak out. She had to challenge the men to go and do what they were supposed to do in the first place, namely, lead the people, defend the land. So she called a military leader named Barak. His name means thunderbolt. Notice that she didn't wait for him to come. She didn't sit around hoping that somebody would finally stand up and finally do what God wanted to do. Instead, this godly woman, inspired by God, went and found the guy who was supposed to be doing this in the first place. She didn't try to take his position over and do his job. Instead, she went to encourage him to do his job. That's an important difference. Look at verse 6. She sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, "The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you." Now, that's not the best translation in the NIV. A better translation would be, "Has not the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you?" This is not a statement, it's a question. Has not the Lord God of Israel commanded you? In other words, Barak already knew what he was supposed to be doing. This isn't new information for him. This isn't the first time he's hearing this. This is 20 years of oppression. He's a general. He knows this. But he was being disobedient to the call of God on his life to lead the people. Why? Same reason most people, because he was scared. He didn't want to go to war with the Canaanites. Who would? They have an entire battalion of tanks right at the front. Nobody's going to try that. See, the Lord had commanded Barak very specifically to go to war, to defend the people, and gave him the exact plan of what he wanted them to do. Look at God's instructions in verse 6. "Go, gather your men at Mount Tabor, taking 10,000 from the people of Naphtali and the people of Zebulun, and I will draw out Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, and meet you by the river Kishon with his chariots and troops, to meet you by the river Kishon with his chariots and troops, and I will give them into your hand." Let me explain this in a way we can understand, so you can kind of figure out what's going on in Barak's mind and why he's hesitating, why he's scared of this. It helps to have studied the topography of the area. That plays a huge part in the battle. See, God commands Barak to gather as big an army as he could, about 10,000 soldiers. Now keep in mind, the enemy army had 900 chariots. That's 900 chariots, 900 horses, 900 guys, not to mention the other men, horses, and weapons standing behind them. In fact, they say that the force of 900 wasn't just one army. This is a collaboration of armies. So there's army after army after army behind this, okay? That's just the front line. Verse 7 says that God would draw out Sisera. The NIV says, lure out Sisera. Sisera was the general of one of the largest armies in the world at the time. This was not somebody who's easily lured into traps. But God's going to take care of that. God's plan was for Barak's army to gather on the slopes of the mountain. See how the mountain's the big slopey thing here? Where the chariots couldn't come. Chariots don't really go uphill all that good, especially up a mountain. Make a stand there, 10,000 people standing on the slopes of the mountain, and show Sisera that trouble was brewing. He would be enticed to come and fight and put down this rebellion. But hiding on the mountain wasn't going to win the war. It was the next part